How's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we have plenty to break down our latest Big Mets update segment, having everything to do with not only Polar Bear Pete Alonso, but yes, Alex Bregman and Roki Sasaki. The Mets may have already offered Pete Alonso a contract, which goes directly in hand as to why they're at a reported sizable gap per John Heyman of the New York Post as of yesterday. We're going to deep dive the latest reporting as to what contract the Mets may already have on the table for Pete Alonso. Why is he saying no potentially? What contract could it be to land both sides here on an agreement ultimately? And what's the latest with Alex Bregman and his market, as the Mets now look like that they are currently a finalist for him and his services? And to cap it all off, the latest with Roki Sasaki and where the Mets have an uphill battle versus where they find themselves in a comfortable position versus other teams competing for his services. Let me see your initial reactions in the comments down below to all the following, everybody. Thank you so much for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in. And thank you guys all so much for hearing from our amazing sponsor here at OddsJam, folks, as OddsJam has you covered. Look at these results. People are making free money. They're making thousands every month betting on sports completely risk-free. The secret, they're using OddsJam. OddsJam is just not another betting app. It's turning the entire system in your favor. Here's how OddsJam uses a strategy called arbitrage, finding odds differences across sportsbooks. You bet both sides, and no matter the outcome, you will profit. Here's an example. If you put $500 down on Boise State to win, and then on FanDuel you put $335 on the opponent in San Fran for DraftKings, you're guaranteed to make 50 win or lose. It's that easy. With the OddsJam mobile app, you'll get real-time alerts on these opportunities every day, and people are making thousands monthly. And for you to get started, use our promo code WARDY for 35% off and a 7-day free trial. I'll guarantee you a profit during the trial, and if you don't, cancel anytime with one click, no questions asked. Don't leave money on the table. Go to oddsjam.com, use code WARDY, and start making money the smart way. Shout out to OddsJam for being an amazing sponsor here on the platform, folks. We appreciate them. Now, folks, let's get into this one. We'll get back to Roki Sasaki a little bit later on in the show because that is not the main focus here. The main focus has everything to do with Polar Bear Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman, just like we've been covering on the platform. And thank you guys all so much as well. We are oh so close to 30,000 subscribers. If you guys have enjoyed the daily updates, the daily breakdowns, and all things Mets here on the platform every single day throughout the week in the in-season and off-season, make sure to hit those buttons. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the endless support. Just a couple hundred subs away. Just mind-boggling. Thank you guys so much there. But as we see from former New York Met himself, Carlos Baerga, he's back at it, and we got to break it down. And I would like to preface Carlos Baerga, the things that come out of this man's mouth or the things that he types on social media, I highly recommend you take with a grain of salt, only because, yes, he is absolutely connected in the industry. Yes, he was one of, if not the first person to break the Justin Verlander news of the Mets a couple of years ago. Yes, he has also been wrong about plenty of things, and even though they had some reports going back to the Mets' initial offers for Juan Soto this offseason, there was really nothing at that point in time to properly confirm. If anything, there were reports to refute it a couple of days after it came out. This is also the same Baerga who did touch on how apparently the New York Yankees offered a multi-year deal to Gleyber Torres, but he took a one-year deal with the Detroit Tigers instead. So whether you want to believe that or not is up to you guys. But what I will tell you is that Carlos Baerga, again, he is connected, and there's been a lot of rumblings going on as to if the Mets are going to be able to bring back Polar Bear Pete Alonso. It's going to be more so at their terms with how inflated, not inflated, but how much his market has shrunk rather, and ultimately where things stand on a potential contract offer. Should this be true, the Mets offered not Carlos Baerga. According to Carlos Baerga, the Mets offered Pete Alonso a 3-year, yes, $90 million contract, right around $30 million of average annual value with a couple opt-outs. And this is exactly what we have been proposing on the channel as of late with Alonso. I mean, understandably so, especially after seeing every other major domino and both the free agent and trade market to now fall for first baseman, and for teams that need first baseman, it's unbelievably small market at the moment. And Alonso is in a class of his own, but still, with not having too much defensive upside, not having too much base running upside, and a guy who is your prototypical slugger where you know what you're getting there as your 4-hitter every day, there's certainly upside here, and all the more reason as to why Pete Alonso and the Mets uniform feels inevitable versus going elsewhere. That's also exactly why that should this report be true, at 3 years, $90 million, and Pete Alonso turned it down. Listen, Pete, I don't know how much farther you're trying to get here, but if we're at a so-called sizable gap where you're still pursuing, say, north of $175+ million, if not more, which I'm sure you are, because according to this, Carlos Baerga said that Scott Boras and Alonso are pushing for right around $200 million. The Mets don't want to go anywhere close to that, I'm sure. I imagine that they can reach in the middle. close to in that 125 to 150 range. But at this point, if you're the Mets, you have to make sure that you stand firm as well. If there's a sizable gap of 3+ years on a contract dispute, then I understand that. But especially on, say, a 1 and or 2 year, depending on the options, that's something I wouldn't be too stubborn on. For the Mets, they need to make sure that they don't have too much of a long-term investment should they say want to go after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. next offseason. Not that this is to slight Alonso, but this is the truth. This is a business at the end of the day, and Alonso needs to further prove his worth long-term for the Mets of this organization. As tremendous as he was in the playoffs, and he absolutely was, the Mets are only going to view that so much into how it goes with their future plans. They need consistent success from their players that they're having any somewhat long-term investment in, which is why guys like Lindor and guys like Soto are going to project very well for the continued years to come under their long-term contracts. In the case of Alonso, who was initially seeking, I'd imagine, a 6-7 year contract, $200 million, he's not sniffing that here with the New York Mets. At least it's not looking that way. That's why Baerga goes on to say in his so-called report that if the Mets and Alonso do, in fact, reach a deal, and he believes that to be the case, that it will be on the shorter term end, and it won't be in as much in favor of Alonso's market as it will be in Stearns Co. and what they're currently offering. So let's say hypothetically right now that the Mets at least had 3 years, $90 million on the table. Maybe would add in incentives that could reach it to a $100+ million contract, right? And in the case of Alonso, he wants at least 175 to pushing 200, also in hand with Scott Boras being Scott Boras. Scott is also more than willing to have this really drag out if it means that we have to get into deep January, February. But for Alonso, we all know that Alonso doesn't want that. We all know that Alonso would love nothing more than to just have something get figured out the Mets as soon as humanly possible, or what any team that he's trying to land with. But it feels like the Mets over anybody right now. That's going to happen sooner rather than later if he really wants to come back here. I just can't imagine Alonso being stubborn all offseason long where he's not going to say to Scott at some point if he hasn't already, listen, I just want to get a deal done that makes sense for both sides here. Let's lighten up a little bit. I understand what the market value is. I might not be in love with it, but let me go out there and then hopefully bank on myself if I have a player option after my first year, and then I can try to hit the market again and push for $200+ million, especially after maybe having a greater year than he's ever had before. Should he be batting in the same lineup right behind Juan Soto? Naturally, I'd imagine a lot of great things to happen should that be the circumstance. You're going to have endless more RBI opportunities. You're going to have a lot more overall opportunities with this Mets offense. So for Alonso and for David Stearns and Cohen and co., let's rekindle that relationship and let's reach what makes sense on both sides here, which is why I've said for a while, a 4 tops 5 year deal is fine. I think a 4-year deal would be prime for both sides. For Alonso, he still gets some length, while the Mets also will have those opt-outs in place after the first and or second plus seasons. That way it benefits both sides. Should, say, Alonso want to opt out, whether it's a player option or a mutual option in which both can come to agreement on. I know that for Scott Boras, that's a hard thing to do for him and his clients, but you're going to have to reach in the middle sooner rather than later, and there should not be an overly sizable gap if the Mets are at 3 years 90. Like, I love you, Pete. I absolutely do. And I hope you return to the Mets, but let's also bear in mind what your market is and where you're currently positioned. The ball is not in your court nearly as strong as maybe you initially think it is, and I don't know what the thought process behind doing the long game will do in getting you with this market any farther, when the whole reason as to why the market isn't in your favor is because teams looked at you, they considered you, and they said, we're going to decide to go with short-term options or guys that we can trade for younger with potentially higher upside, because we just know how unpredictable you and your market is right now, and we know that we're not really going to get our hands on it. The fact that the amount of teams have went out of their way to avoid Alonso tells you more on where his market currently stands and why Pete Alonso being with the Mets feels like a foregone conclusion more than anything else that we have essentially seen outside of Juan Soto inevitably landing with the Mets this offseason. Mets fans, let me know how you feel about that, because we also heard just over this past day here from Cardinals Live on X. And the only reason why I'm referencing Cardinals Live is a little bit in hand with Baerga as well. These guys have shown reputability where he has been credible Cardinals Live throughout the course of the offseason. He really has been wrong on all that much from everything that I've seen. He's just an anonymous X account, but he's really not going out of his way to be like, oh my God, breaking news, look at this. He's just stating the things that he says and believes and everything that he's hearing throughout the industry, including the Mets having serious interest in Bregman. He stated this prior to a lot of people actually going out of their way to say in the public public eye that the Mets' interest in Bregman was real and it wasn't just preliminary, if you will. So now we hear from Cardinals Live the following, which is Alonso to the Mets is essentially close to being done. Mets are entering the the finale of their Bregman chase. So any Mets fans, just brace for impact because you're on the midst of a super fun offseason. It's not being reported enough, actually. Soto, Bregman, and Alonso, this could be the start of something special. And I wholeheartedly agree. If the Mets go out and they bring back the polar bear and they go and certainly bring in Alex Bregman too, I will be absolutely ecstatic. I mean, how can you not be if you're a Mets fan? Bregman would solve so many immediate issues where Mark Vientos lacks at the hot corner defensively, while also adding more oomph to this lineup. Again, more quality for this Mets team, which really stands out to me. There would be so many things I would love about the idea of having Bregman in this lineup, and I apologize, folks. Just trying to see if I have Bregman's stats on hand here or if I need to pull them up separately. There they are. Alex Bregman, again, an over 4-WAR player this past season. To pair him with Alonso in this lineup, I think is what we would all love to see. And yes, it would mean that you would shift Vientos to more so of a standard DH, unless throughout the course of the year you gave Bregman more second base reps and platoon Vientos there at third base and DH. But again, if you're investing in Alex Bregman at 4, 5, 6 years, you're not doing that to have him play an off position when he's a plus defender, was a Gold Glover last year, and has played pretty strong defense throughout his career consistently. With Alex Bregman, you land a multi-time World Series champ, a guy that knows how to win with cheating and without cheating, scandal and scandal without. In the case of Alex Bregman here, you'd be getting a guy that has won about his game as professional as they come, excluding the cheating scandal, obviously, knows what it takes to win a year in and year out, and expects to deal with a body of work that goes far beyond the 162 season. Bregman, he's been able to stay healthy, which has been great to see. His splits go directly in hand with him favoring well at Citi Field, where he would have essentially the same exact numbers and the home run rates, the RBIs, etc. Alex Bregman would really shore up the team defense, where I know David Stearns would love. They're at third base while allowing Pete Alonso to continue to be the guy at first base. Have Vientos at DH. Hopefully try to swing a trade for Starling Marte. Maybe you're going to bring back Jesse Winker if you could get the job done there, and have Jesse platoon at times there that we see in the corner outfield / DH. I understand his job would be limited, but I also understand that I'm willing to have a lesser of a Jesse Winker, if any Jesse Winker in 2025, if it means that Alex Bregman will be coming here. Because as much as I love Jesse, I think Bregman can bring more overall qualities to the table of the Mets, a heavier workload, and a better immediate impact. And that's someone who desperately wants Jesse Winker back with this Mets team. And to further expand here on Alex Bregman, everybody, this goes in hand with how the Mets may now find themselves as a potential finalist for Bregman. As we did see earlier today that, yes, the Detroit Tigers signed Gleyber Torres for that 1-year, $15 million deal. We'll find out if it's true or not from what Carlos Baerga apparently said, that the Yankees offered a 2 or 3 year deal, but he took a 1-year deal to go in Detroit. Could be true if he wants to change his scenery. He just doesn't want to be a Yankee anymore. Wouldn't shock me with Gleyber, as he felt probably slighted over the past couple of years as to try to be moved out of his natural position. But in the case of what is next for the Detroit Tigers and Alex Bregman, as they have been actively pursuing him, along with other teams, including the Mets, among others, because of that rekindling relationship between AJ Hinch and Bregman during their time with the cheating Astros in 2017, etc. Sky Harris leading the way there for the Detroit Tigers, who said no to the Mets when they offered him a GM/Pobo job a couple years ago, has the following to say on the Alex Bregman sweepstakes after landing Torres. And I quote, "I can't comment on any free agent. I can just tell you we are all already working to continue to get better. We're trying to find ways to make this organization better, but I really like where we're at right now." So pretty much in very normal GM speak, he's content where the team is at. If they can land Bregman, still great, but it isn't necessarily a lock that's going to happen. In the case of Bregman, I'm curious as to how much farther the Tigers are willing to go. I'm sure that they still have a bit more of a stubbornness as to what they're willing to spend this offseason. And for the Mets, are they really willing to go 5, 6 years of Alex Bregman north of $200 million? For a while, it's felt like no, it's hard to fathom that. But then you continue to hear that they're actively involved in his market. They're not on the outside looking in right now, and they clearly do like Bregman. I guess the big question now when it comes to Bregman is, how serious is the Mets' pursuit of both Alonso and Bregman together versus being more comfortable with one or the other? That is what we're going to find out shortly with how the Bregman sweepstakes pan out, as another fellow Scott Boras client, among others. So between himself and Alonso, these are two big pieces that if the Mets somehow, some way can land both, you look at that Mets offense next year, you look at Francisco Lindor, you look at WardyNYM hopefully staying relatively healthy with the plantar fasciitis, you look at Juan Soto, you look at Pete Alonso, you look at Alex Bregman, you look at Mark Vientos, you look at a healthy and ready to bounce back El Troll Francisco Alvarez, and then you add in all the other aspects where you're going to get, some excitement at times for Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor. You're going to get some key production from some of the youngsters who they don't trade versus what they keep, and the Luis Angel Acuñas, the Jet Williams, the Ronnie Mauricios to a degree, right? You're going to look at the Starling Martes if he's not traded and his immediate impact still off the bench. You're going to look at if you bring back one, if not both of Jesse Winker, Jose Iglesias, the vibes. Oh my God, we need to make that happen. The list goes on and on. This Mets team did a lot of great things in 2024, but they're going to do even bigger, better, greater things here in 2025. And hopefully Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso can find themselves as part of that mix. Mets fans, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your initial reactions to all the latest news in the comments down below on the case of Alex Bregman here and Pete Alonso. And before I let you go, as I promised, because I do want to make sure that I don't miss on this, let's touch briefly here, folks, on, let's see here, let me pull up the stats, in Roki Sasaki. We did see a little bit earlier from John Heyman over this past day or so where teams stand in the Roki Sasaki pursuit. And as things currently stand, the Mets and the Yankees, according to John Heyman, he'll be shocked if Roki Sasaki doesn't land out west. And I've been under that belief to a degree, but I'm not going to lie. I think that there's more optimism that should be shared in the front of the Mets landing Sasaki than what's being out there right now. And I don't know how much of that is my Mets bias talking, as it is my confidence in the lab and what Sasaki sees in it, but the Mets can sell on the pitching lab, on what they built over the past couple years, on the great success that they've gotten out of pitchers, along with New York, the ability to be an ace in this rotation, to pair with Senga to get comfortable. There are a lot of factors I like for the Mets, but that natural uphill battle is still the LA Dodgers, still the San Diego Padres, led by Yu Darvish, in which him and Sasaki have a great relationship with one another, reportedly. So yes, the Mets do have an uphill battle. It appears that way, but it suggests that they're out far from it. They're still very much in the mix of things for Sasaki, and we're going to find out over these next 2 weeks or so, two and a half weeks, where he will be landing for potentially long-term of his future as a young Japanese phenom now coming over the States, just like Yoshinobu Yamamoto a year ago. And just like a man by the name of Shohei Ohtani a couple years ago. Turned out pretty well for the league. Maybe not if you're a fan of a team in the NL West now, but certainly if you're a fan of Major League Baseball outside of the Big Bad Dodgers being the Big Bad Dodgers. I digress, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Sasaki, Alonso, Bregman down below, and stay tuned for more consistent coverage on all things Mets all off season long. Thank you guys again. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.